Good space time, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Citizen Web3 podcast, your source for educational insights into the Web3 universe and your connection hub to discovering those that contribute to building the decentralized world. Today, we are joined by Pavel from Zano. We touch upon staying off the radar, memes, and tin head foil theories. We talk about privacy blockchains, libertarianism versus privacy, and room to grow. Finally, we discuss distribution, building communities, and transaction history. If you enjoy our podcast, please share this episode to your favorite social platform to help us spread Web3 values across the universe.
The biggest mistake I think people make is that they're trying to create one blockchain to rule them all. Meme coins do not divide people, and people don't really get married to their memes. The capacity of blockchain would not be enough to facilitate the number of transactions for mainstream adoption. There is a misconception in cryptocurrency in general. When it was started, people assumed it's somewhat private.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of a Citizen Web3 podcast. And today I have Pavel from Zano. Pavel, hi. Welcome to the show.
Hey everyone.
Glad to have you on, man. So, traditional question. I know it's a very, 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 very simple, boring question, but please, I always ask my guests to introduce themselves for myself and for the listeners in a way they want to be introduced, in the way what they want people to know about them. But if I can please ask you to include in your intro maybe a small story of how you got to Web3 and what are you working on currently, if it's possible. Thank you.
Sure. If I can start with the Web3 part, people tend to call Web3 the programmable blockchains. I believe this is the EVM, Solana, that kind of stuff. And I've been in privacy crypto mostly, so I'm not exactly a Web3 person, but I took some Solidity courses and I became interested in such a topic. And I think since 2020, I started doing smart contracts and Web3 development as well. And now what we are trying to do here in Zana and with other projects, we are trying to merge the fields of privacy and Web3. So this probably makes me the person on in between the original old school hardcore cryptocurrency, the cypherpunks, people who are against the government and try to stay off the radar, and the very public, very people-oriented Web3 development. So I'm kind of in between.
Sorry about this. Unmute. I always say the unmute button is my biggest enemy. You said one very interesting sentence that I want to dig. You said cypherpunks stay off the radar. This is interesting. Why do you think that? Why, in your opinion, cypherpunks stay off the radar? I mean, I'm gonna be devil's advocate right now, but I mean, I don't know who we call. But for example, McAfee, can we call him a cypherpunk? I don't know. I mean, he was a very public person, right? But I don't know.
I wouldn't.
Okay.
He's very public and open about his
Was.
I don't want to talk bad about the guy, but he was chilling shit coins for his personal gain. So that's not a cypherpunk ideal.
Yes.
And I could probably explain why it is important for an average person without going into extremes and the tin head foil theories. I'm not gonna go there. But for the same reason, you don't post your bank statement online. For the same reason, you need to have privacy. And some people say, I got nothing to hide. But yet they don't do it because, why?
But do you think that privacy is only for cypherpunks? Can normal people also have privacy then?
They do and they should. It's just normal people normally do not appreciate it enough until they have it taken away. And right now, people don't really realize that it's already been happening, that whatever you do on blockchain is going to be there forever with the AI and agencies. They can dig into your transaction. And even if now it's sort of okay and no one tracks them and don't pay enough attention, you should realize that it's going to be there forever. And eventually it's going to get matched with your identity. And then if you haven't paid any taxes on your unrealized capital gains, they'll get you.
That is for sure, and hopefully, there will be a lot of changes to that. Of course, not Yeah, let's see where we will end up in 5-10 years. Hopefully it will. I'm also very pessimistic in that direction, but I'm trying to be sometimes optimistic, trying to see the light in the end of the tunnel, but
Well,
I'm not sure.
there is a light, there is a way to do it without being like overly public. And I'm not saying like you should try to hide away and break the law. That's not what I'm saying. But having your bank statement posted, it basically puts a crosshair on your back. People know how much money you got. For example, if you pay someone with stable coins, it's really easy to find your main account connected to Compound or whatever. See it like the entire your net worth and everything, and people you connected with. Like, why would you do that to yourself?
Of course. I think we were talking with Francesco Cabana from Monero about half a year ago. And I think it was him. And then there was roughly around the same time I was talking with Boxer from Dune Analytics. And, it's very interesting to speak to somebody like from the guy from Analytics. It was very interesting from Dune Analytics because, he sees a lot of that. He sees a lot of those numbers and his statement was something like, you wouldn't believe how easy it is for somebody like myself. Like, I can in 1 hour, maximum 1.5 hours, tell you pretty much everything about a person if I have only one transaction from them. Of course, this guy is, the specialist, but it's a bit scary, to come to the thing that we came to this stage from, especially for anybody who entered crypto before 2015, 16, maybe 2017. It's very scary to see where we come. And the question I want to ask you is, do you think today there is a possibility of, let's say, Web3? If let's assume that cryptocurrency is under the umbrella of Web3, just for the sake of our conversation, do you think that there is a possibility that Web3 will develop not into industry which is completely watched? And do you think we have a chance of still having privacy as a right?
Well, I think it could be done. It shouldn't be used as the only ecosystem that people use to transact between themselves. I think every blockchain, well, not every, but the good ones. Let's put it this way: the good ones have their own purpose. For example, if there is a Bitcoin, it's the oldest one. It has the most liquidity, no doubts about that. And some people might think that it was not intended to be a store of value, how people call it now. But this is the thing, it has the most liquidity. And Ethereum and EVM like chains, they developed the global computing. You can run dApps, you can borrow land, you can do all the Web3 stuff, you can do NFTs, and it's a perfect blockchain for something like that. But when it comes to storing your personal wealth for private transaction, you should go to privacy blockchains. This is what it's for. And the solution for something like that is very simple. You just need to connect them and use it for intended purposes.
Before we go into, we will talk definitely more a little bit about privacy for sure. But I want to go back a little bit to your Web3 story first. How did you arrive in Web3? Because nobody wakes up and says, hey, I'm going to build a privacy related project, or I'm going to build a project in Web3. There is a journey usually. What was your journey, if of course you don't mind talking about it?
Yeah, it's not a big secret, and I think it's two like unrelated stories. I've been in privacy crypto for a while now. We started working on Zano with my colleague Andre back in 2018. Before that, I was sort of helping him out with the Bulberry project. And around the same time, Ethereum became a thing. And I was just watching and following. And at some point, I became interested in that as well. So I did a couple of silly smart contracts. I went through a couple of courses. So now I'm like fairly confident in my solidity skills. And ever since, I'm trying to find the way to merge them into something like interoperable. And the biggest mistake I think people make is that they're trying to create one blockchain to rule them all. Like, we're gonna do the privacy smart contract, and this is going to be the thing that will replace both Monero and Ethereum because it could do everything. And that's not how blockchain works. I mean, the capacity of blockchain would not be enough to facilitate the number of transactions for like a mainstream adoption. You should have all of them working together. This is why I'm trying to kind of keep up with both.
Do you think that most of the market today views blockchains like this, where everybody is looking for that one Pokemon to catch them all, or do you think that the industry is divided at this stage? There is like the newcomers or the hype people who are looking for that, and then there is the developers and the privacy enthusiasts who are working on the projects. Or how do you view the industry today in relation to what you said, of course?
Well, depends on how you define the market. If you're talking about people specifically, people who just want to buy a meme coin and get rich right away, they don't care. They rarely can tell the blockchain and token on the blockchain apart. And at some point, it was even insulting for me when people call Zano token, which is not token, it's a coin. For me, it's an important distinction that Ethereum is a coin, but let's say USDT is a token. So I think if you talk about retail as a market, they don't care generally. And if we are talking about teams and developers, especially in privacy, it's very tribal. I mean, people try to fight each other, and sometimes they don't really realize that privacy is just a tiny speck on the market cap in general, and isn't really seen by the mainstream people. They think it's just some weird crypto freaks doing something weird. Who cares? So I do think it's very divided, and people need to adopt something like the Cosmos approach. I really like Cosmos approach. It's an ecosystem that allows you to launch and interconnect blockchains. This is like the best thing ever to me. So I would love to see more of that instead of people fighting over who is going to be the top privacy project this year.
I can relate a lot to that. For many years, well, and until today, I mean, we had this project for about 5 years, and for the last 5 years, our goal and my personal goal has been, anti-tribalism. It's a very difficult mission, though, from what I see. But before, I'm gonna relate a question to that, actually, from something that you said. I want to ask you. And before I ask you, I'm going to give you a small intro because it's important. So, I think that all of this is a question, but a very big, in the form of a very, very big statement.
All right,
So
let's hear it.
I think at least, subjectively to me, we change. So we as humans, when you become a developer, you think of things in one way, and as you progress in your developer, let's call it career or knowledge, you change opinions sometimes, right? So if you started 10 years ago developing, in 10 years your opinions about what you're doing could be different. And
True.
it's something like you mentioned coin token, that it was offensive to you before, and because
Yeah,
you
I'm not
distinguish.
there anymore. I made my peace with it, but it's been a thing at some point.
That's exactly what so we are on the same page. Love it. So memes, I want to talk to you about memes, because right now, for the people who are listening to this, we're recording this in December 2024 beginning, and it's about tribalism and memes. And I have to say, when I came to this industry in 2011 12, I was, when I first heard of memes in 2013 14, I was mind blown. What the hell is this? This is bullshit. This is not why I came to this industry. Today, I must say that, the whole, we're talking about tribalism, and here is this. I'm gonna resume now the big statement. Like, it looks to me, at least, again, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here, but it looks to me a little bit that today memes are at the same time acting as the whole concept of memes, not tokens by themselves, not separate tokens, but acting as a kind of anti-tribalism mechanism, which helps a lot of people to unite in a community. And the question is like this: do you think that sometimes absurd and ridiculous things like the meme culture can change so much in such a serious question as tribalism when it comes to privacy projects, when it comes to, I don't know, L1s, L2s, L27, doesn't matter. But it looks like tribalism is one of our biggest enemies. And it looks like memes can unite, us as a community and say, hey, fuck everybody. All we care about is, I don't know, Peep, Bob, whatever, dog, cat, whatever. I don't know. What do you think about everything? I mean, this is a statement, like I said, so a very argumentative statement. Sorry.
Well, there's some points I agree with. For example, I'm totally on board with the idea that the meme coins do not divide people, and people don't really get married to their memes. They can jump from one to another, and it's actually encouraged and endorsed by the meme community. So you don't get defensive about like, oh, I should dump my Mudang and buy the Pepe, whatever. It's all the same thing. So I agree with that. It's anti-tribal. At the same time, I'm not a huge fan of meme coins because I believe they take away attention from something important, and it's basically a gambling addiction. And like, I mean, it's allowed and it's an unregulated space, and I couldn't call myself libertarian, but I'm leaning towards that way. So I think if people want to entertain their addiction, they should be allowed to. So it's all fair, but it's not healthy. I mean, you could eat unhealthy food if you want to, but that's not going to be good for you. I'm not going to say it's good for you. So this is probably my opinion on meme coins. Yes, it's fun. It takes away the tribalism out of it because it doesn't matter. But also, it's kind of predatory because to make money on a meme coin, you should be either insider or super lucky or one of the insiders who really knows how to bundle the Solana liquidity when you launch it. And also, there's some really dark things were happening on the pump fund with the trash streams, and I wasn't happy seeing that. I mean, there's not a good side of humans you can see there. So that's probably the bad part.
Do you see or think of other, apart from, I mean, again, I'm not even claiming that memes can solve this. It was just something observation. But what do you think are other tools that we as a community, and I mean Web3 community, the developer community, can introduce today to help us battle tribalism? What can be done to stop that, or at least to lower it?
Well, this is going to be a boring answer, but I came from product development before I became a crypto person, and I think if you have a good enough product that is easy to use and solving some of the issues you're having, this is going to be enough. And we are not quite there as a Web3 community. I mean, there are some great apps there, and we are even much further away as a privacy community because it's just unusable. The UX is terrible. So there's a room to grow in that regard. But if we manage to do that, for example, I wasn't using Steam for games. I was stealing them for the majority of my young years when I was student. But they made it so convenient for me. So I didn't feel like I need to do it, even though if I have enough money to actually afford it. It was so good, so I switched to it completely. Same happened to streaming. Like streaming was unbearable, unusable, but Netflix did it, and right now it's the main way to consume media content. If I manage to create a money transference service, which is essentially what crypto is aiming to do, that would be enough.
How does that money transfer and service going to look? What will be the difference between what we have today and that particular money transfer and service? UI, UX, usability, adoption,
All of that, I think.
all of that.
I mean, right now, if I need to explain my dad how to send me USDT, this is gonna be a fucking nightmare.
You think so? This is actually a good question. This is a good point, I think, because I think that we have, at least from my guests who come to talk to, I at the last year I started to sense two different camps. Those that say that we came to the point where I can explain to my father how to send USDT, and those like yourself that say, no, I'm sorry, but it's still a nightmare, and I don't know where your father comes from, but this is a nightmare. So why do you still think that it's a nightmare today? Am I right?
Well, I can probably explain. If you
Please.
use the custodian solution that basically works and as an app, as a Venmo or PayPal, it's easy. But that's not the proper Web3. It's not like your keys, your coins, and this is the part we need to fix.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Thank you. Just for the record, by the way, and for the listeners, and give me please your explanation of. I know you made peace with it, but still, please give me your explanation of coin versus token.
Well, token is something that doesn't have its own blockchain. For example, if you launch ERC20 on Ethereum, that's not a coin. This is token, but Ethereum itself is a coin. And it doesn't really matter which coin. It could be GXO based model or it could be account based. That's the definition by me, but don't quote me on that. This is just how I see things. I don't know if it's a consensus.
This is about your description, definitely,
Okay,
for sure.
okay.
So today is
And
about your description. Today is everything about
so
you.
this is what
So
I sincerely believe in. That's the important. And
it's please go on. Please go on. Sorry. I thought you made a post. Sorry. Please go on.
yeah, I did. But speaking of tokens, this is one of the things we wanted to build now in Zano, and we built the thing that we used to call a confidential assets, and mainly because I was super defensive on the token definition. But a lot of people told me like, don't fight it. This is what people call currency now, tokens, and this is what you should do, because otherwise you just like alienate them and drive them away from the project, because like, what the hell is this? And privacy tokens, people tend to understand when I tell them like, this is the main thing we are doing right now. We know you're not gonna pay for your coffee with Monero or Bitcoin, because who does that? Like 0.00078 coins per something. No one gonna use that. You need stable coin. You need like value, the dollar type value or something similar. This is why I believe tokens is when we speak about adoption, people use tokens more than anything else.
I think before I'm going to jump more into like a little bit about privacy in Zano, which I want to understand, of course. There is one interesting sentence you said that I made a note from, but I didn't ask you, but I want to ask. I think just like with coins and tokens, and there's confusion a lot of the time there. I think that, usually for at least for a lot of people, for a big majority of people, I would say, privacy and the word libertarian usually come hand in hand. And you made a very clear distinction between them. And I actually definitely agree with you, but I'm curious as for you to hear your explanation as to why you make a distinguish between them, and how are they, of course they are very different, but why are they different for you? Why is privacy and libertarianism I did it are different for you and a different camps?
Well, I believe there is a big overlap between those two, but you cannot lump them together because it would assign certain qualities that we are essentially not trying to do in the privacy. Privacy means fungibility. This is the essential value of privacy, because if one of your coins are not equal to another, that's not fungible. If one of your Bitcoin outputs was used like few hundred transactions before in some drug deal or money laundering or something like that, that would mean that your Bitcoin transaction could be logged when you send it to the exchange, and you as a person, you do not have capacity to do the proper background check. Same applies to tokens and Ethereum coins, or some of them are centralized and could be blacklisted, and there's always a risk for that. That means one USDT will never be equal to another USDT because you do not know the implication. So essentially, only privacy crypto could be fungible. You can be sure that if you purchase one thing, it will always be that one thing and nothing will ever happen to it, which is a essential for cryptocurrency. I mean, it's a definition of cryptocurrency. This is why I want to separate, like fighting the government or whatever, and just have fungible money. That's not the same thing. It overlaps, but it doesn't have to be the same thing.
Do you think that it would help to onboard more people to the libertarian camp if privacy was more of an accepted um I don't know what is the word to use for privacy. Let's say more of an accepted term or an accepted thing, because a lot of people are afraid of privacy. A lot of people are educated in a way where for them, being private means they're doing something bad, and it's of course it's not. But do you think it would help to have more people understanding that a lot of the things in today's world are done, unfairly, if privacy was not so, I don't know, witch hunted, let's call it like that?
Yeah, maybe. I think people, there is a misconception in cryptocurrency in general. When it was started, people assumed it's somewhat private. Like, you don't know what that address means, so they just assume if I not gonna reuse it, it's going to be sort of fine. And even now, they think if they maintain a proper hygiene, you swap the addresses, often you do not post it on your Reddit account or something, that should be enough. Or if you use like CoinJoin or mixing services, but this is just wrong because people would see that you are doing that. And even if you are like super good, there's still a lot of metadata that could be leaked from the sources beyond your control, your counterparty exchanges, like just people around you, that could help eventually identify you over time. This is why I think people believe that cryptocurrency in general is a privacy thing, but it really isn't. If anything, it's opposite, because you have entire history of your transaction stored in blockchain forever. So as soon as people realize it, how bad this is actually is, they'll know. I mean, I already made that point earlier. You do not post your banking statement online, and probably nothing bad can come out of it. Like, who cares that you paid for this and that? It could probably reveal some of your spendings and maybe your location. But if you are not doing anything incriminating, it should be fine. But it isn't. People don't do that. They understand why is it a bad idea to post your transactions online. And same applies for cryptocurrency. And I do not really understand why this is such a leap. I think it should be obvious enough by now.
I think it's a leap because of fear. And this is actually, like, I would guess the next question that to you, I speak to a lot of privacy founders, and I have had, libertarian authors on the podcast, and a lot of validators. We are a self-hosted validator ourselves, and we are big privacy advocates. But one thing I can see is that fear. People are afraid. People are scared. The more cases are happening, you don't longer believe how many guests said they cannot come on the show because of some of them. You will know the names, of course I will not say, but because of their ongoing processes in real quotations life, they just said I cannot come on the show and speak because I'm too scared. And I think that is the issue. Do you agree? Do you think that fear plays a role in that?
Yeah, of course. And it's been engineered. It's not just a random thing. People go to jail. They got sentenced
Yes.
for a tenth
Yes.
of, like, for
Yes.
ridiculous amount of. Yeah, it's very real. I think it's wrong for what it's worth, but it's not like it's up to me.
Why aren't you afraid?
Well, I don't think I'm a significant enough person, and also in connection with Zano, we don't have like the way to extract value out of the user's privacy. We don't have like any built-in revenue. So what we are doing is writing the code, and that should be fine to my understanding of the law. If you start charging fees for privacy transaction and made some gains of it, That would be the same case as the Tornado cache have the uh, like I don't remember when that exactly happened, but I think um, the main problem was charging fees for money laundering. As long as you don't do that and you just provide the software, you're sort of fine. And we don't have any like levers or tools, nothing that average user don't have. We just run a wallet like you can. It's a peer-to-peer network. We don't have any means to control it.
I think that the surveillance industry that has been built on top of blockchain at one point, if not already today, but it will definitely start being worth and producing at least as much revenue as the industry itself, because our industry doesn't produce much revenue in proportion
Yeah,
compared
unfortunately,
to
we are
yeah.
notoriously bad in business.
Yes, we are bad businessmen. That's true. We are. I think this is our how to say our together shared quality. Of all the Web3 people, we are just bad businessmen. No, but I don't know. I think that I hope that people at some places. I want to say, I know it's gonna sound very bold, but I want to say, people need to grow balls. But at some places, you are absolutely right. Like, it is real jail terms, it is real lives, being put at risk, and there are a lot of people who I know personally, unfortunately, in situations like this or in similar situations. Still, on the same time, I see, that, how you say, engineered fear going, especially with a lot of projects that came after 21. I feel that, I don't know about you, but even, like, when you go on the Twitter of the founders sometimes, and of course, I'm not going to single anyone out here, but I have said it publicly before that, why you people look like you're afraid, like, why are you afraid? We're not going to do this, we're not going to do this, we're never going to implement this technology because we are going to get persecuted, or we're not going to go and I don't know, we have to go and do this registration in this country, and we're not going to have revenue, blah 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 blah, because otherwise we're going to get persecuted. And do you think there is an end to that cycle?
Well, I mean, this is more of a legal question, and I don't
Of
really
course.
know. I don't have a
Okay.
strong opinion on
Okay.
that, and I'm trying not to touch the legal
Okay.
side at all because this is just something I'm not good at. What I'm trying to do is to remove myself completely out of anything that includes legal and just write the code, and people could run it. We don't have a foundation. We don't have a like a business entity that takes fees, that like issues invoices or do anything money related. So if you want to charge us, it should be something to do with the code that you write. And as far as I'm concerned, what we do is allowed. It's just math and development, and it was fine. But I could certainly understand why people don't want to promote certain aspect of their project, because even if you are right and you're fighting someone way more powerful than you, like richer, for example, it could just drain your project because the legal battles are expensive. Even if you have all the means to defend yourself, it's going to be crazy expensive, and you'll just cave in at some point because there's nothing you can do.
Understood. Thank you for answering those questions, anyways. But I will change the topic a little bit for us to also talk, about other things. But one actually question I have for you is, Zano has been around for a while. You've been building the project for a while, and you know it's it's a difficult thing, and there are many questions I can ask here. But what's has the journey, like, what have you learned that you've been doing wrong or right? I don't know, like, if you were right now looking at all of this, how many years have you spent now? 6 7 years, right? Even more. And you could give somebody, I don't know, advice on what not to do, on or what to do when building a crypto project. What would you say to them?
Well, as we established, we are notoriously bad in business. So the business model we picked for Zano was not ideal. I can only suggest not to do that, do something different because it's been a hell of a ride. And at some point, we had to take a side jobs just to keep the lights on. What we did right in Zana is the consensus, like the way to secure the network. I believe this is the only way for a smaller crypto project to be learned because we are getting a lot of heat for our proof of stake, proof of work kind of thing. And I mean, it's mathematically the best way to launch the project if it's small enough. Because if you just go with pure proof of work, you're going to get destroyed with the rented hash power, and proof of stake has its own issues like long range attack. So if someone wants to learn from our mistake, well, we didn't make the mistake, we fixed it. But I mean, this is the part I am fairly confident in. Also, when we talk 6 years of developing Zana, and you brushed over that topic already, things change. So when we started it back in 2018, it was a different idea. It was a coin, like people did coins, and this is going to be the best coin because we did this and that, and it has certain features. Over the time, we pivoted a couple of times, and right now, our idea is something that I was already sort of mentioning, is an ecosystem with tokens, features, and interoperability with other blockchains, because this is what I sincerely believe is the way to scale blockchains in general, because you will never be well, not me, maybe someone way smarter than I am would, but blockchain just doesn't work that way. You cannot scale it indefinitely. You need to be able to come up with the interoperability layer and use the strong points of different projects. So that's the direction we are moving towards right now. We have tokens, mainly because tokens are the most useful pieces of cryptocurrency, if I could put it that way. If you want to get paid in crypto, you normally expect to get stablecoin transaction. That's just how things are, and you can fight it or you don't have to like it, but this is the reality. So yeah, this is the current direction of Zana, and it's fairly new. I mean, we came up with that idea 2 years ago, and it took us a lot of time to come up with the privacy focused proof of stake and anonymous staking and asset support. Now I call them tokens, but it used to be confidential assets. So it took a lot of like pivoting and figuring things out to get where we are right now.
What is mathematically or programmably different from what you guys did with the combination of proof of stake and proof of work from other projects?
Depends on the project. The proof of stake, and what I don't really like about proof of stake conversation, because people tend to take a specific implementation of proof of stake and just apply it to any other proof of stake. Like you can be a I don't know, BFT consensus, like proof of stake with the node validators and a threshold, and really not centralized, but kind of insider run community with just 10 to 20 validators, and there's a proof of stake there. What we did is the absolutely egalitarian proof of stake. You can participate with any amount of coins. No one would know how many coins you get, and you just use your output to produce the, let's call it, hash power. And as long as your wallet is sync and online and has staking enabled, it participates in the network security. So it's like way different from other implementation. And it's just hard to explain sometimes that whatever you don't like about proof of stake is not applicable for us. Some people claim that proof of stake is inherently a bad coin distribution because you pre-mint the entire supply and you just split it between few parties, insiders, and they get the majority of stake power. And this is centralized. This is bad because they already have the majority, and they even get more because they will earn more rewards than anyone else. But that's not a proof of stake issue, it's a distribution issue. If you have a fairly distributed coins in the first place, you're good, you're fine. And uh, I could explain why it's not applicable for us, but this is like going to be about Zana
You can
specifically.
if you want.
Yeah, I don't think it's important, but again, I just don't want to make it into a Zana promotion video.
No. Sure, sure. It's about. Feel free. If you don't think it's important,
I
don't
don't think it's
explain.
important, but like
It's
if
up to
there's a
you.
question, I could address it. It's fine.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. What you said? You mentioned distribution. In my opinion, I don't think blockchain has solved distribution, regardless of the consensus algorithm. I don't think that I have not. I'm yet to see, since I've came to this industry, any one single project saying that can honestly, not say for themselves that I can look at their distribution and say, hey, this is really good. Wow, they have like really, but I have not seen that. So I don't know. Have you seen projects that you can say, hey, these guys have solved distribution?
Well, you cannot solve it right now because the only way to do it is to be born in back in 2011. So Bitcoin sort of did it. It was kind of random, but at the time, no one knew how this is gonna play out. So it was, uh, I don't want to say fair, but it's not like it wasn't incentivized. If you wanted to get in, you could get in, and no one like pushed you and no one tried to keep you away, so it was fair. If you want to do it now, it's not going to be the same. If you choose proof of work, um, chances are your project going to get destroyed really high because it's very easy to rent hash power, and if you're a smaller project, you do not have a lot of people mining, your consensus security is kind of low, and people might not care about your project that much to actually find a way to attack it. But that's not a good security practice. If the only way to fend off attackers is just make them not care. And proof of stake is the other thing. You have the entire supply pre-mined at some point because you need to distribute it somehow. And if you just divide it in 10 equal pieces, that's not a good distribution. That creates like this centralization of power. So doing a little bit of both could be probably the way to address it. For example, I have to get back to our situation because like it's relevant now. When we launched Zeno, we did the coin swap from the previous project called Bulbury, and it was a pure proof of work. So any amount of coins acquired by Bulbury holders were mined, and then they were allowed to swap one to one to Zano. We did a bit of pre-mine to fund the project, but the rest was fairly distributed only by mining. So maybe that's the way to do it, but I'm not saying like we are like we did solve it. It's not. It's gonna be.
What about governance? Because a lot of people who compare proof of work and proof of stake always point out that, of course, proof of work doesn't have the same, or
Yeah,
doesn't
and
at all.
I sincerely agree. I do not think proof of work has a good way to do governance, and honestly, I don't understand how people can like in proof of work. There are holders, people who own the coin, and there are miners, people who produce hash power. And being a holder means you have no means to control what happens to your project. Developers can because they push updates to the software, and miners can because they produce hash power and secure the history of transaction. You, as a user, you got no say in it whatsoever, and this is insane. I do not understand why people think it's fine. I honestly think switching to proof of stake is the only way for every cryptocurrency ever. It's just there are few unsolved issues with proof of stake currently, like long range attacks, and it's not solved yet, and we don't know how to solve it. But as soon as we learn how, we'll be switching to proof of stake right away.
Yeah, this is a lot of people analytics who compare projects, they usually always, Bitcoin is always like, okay, zero for governance, zero for governance, because, and it's not just that, but I think, with Bitcoin specifically, again, a lot of people, again, and I don't want to go into the place of rumoring or saying something I don't know, but there is a lot of talk from people who work with Bitcoin who come onto the show, in saying that, between developers over people who own repository rights, over people who, because in proof of stake it's also a relevant question, who has access to the repositories, who owns the code, and is the code really spread, is the code, or can the code be changed and the sources can be changed by, I don't know, do you think that this is related to proof of stake and proof of work debate, or this is a separate debate altogether?
Well, I think it's separate because it's applicable to both. And of course, you should have the way to control and verify who pushes the updates to the GitHub repo. But this is, I don't see it as an issue because if something terrible happens, you do not upgrade to the new version when you're not like happy with the outcome. You can do that. I mean, not every user, but there's a educated core community that could tell that this is wrong and this particular update they removed this or added this, and we are not agree in agreement with that. So you can sort of do it. You cannot force network to update, at least in our setup, because we need to have a consensus between all the wallets. And if something is falling out of the consensus, it just create the separate sub chain, like the weird circle of people that live in their own world, and they are not connected to the other network. So I don't think it's an issue. It's just a deployment process, and it could be streamlined, but it's not a big deal. But governance is important because if developers and miners are in agreement that we're going to do that, like for example, if they decide that 21 million of Bitcoin is just not enough, let's make uh, 30 for whatever reason, there is nothing that Bitcoin holder can do to prevent that.
I guess the being devil's advocate here, just to argue a little bit, just not to agree on everything. But couldn't you launch a fork, your own fork? Wouldn't that be the
You
solution?
can, but who's going to mine it?
Absolutely. No, I agree with you. I'm just curious,
So if
to.
miners won't support your fork, it will be dead in the water because like how many Bitcoins forks were launched, and
Mhm.
some of them are successful enough to survive, but it's just few, and I believe there were hundreds.
Yeah, 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 more. I believe more. Hundreds is the ones we know. I'm sure that at one point, and I mean, it depends if you calculate only the 2000, hash wars, 2000, sorry, 18, 17 hash wars, or if you go back to Bitcoin talk and the altcoin thread in 2014 and click
Yeah,
refresh and have 100
I
new
don't
coins every
even
1 minute.
I don't even want to go there. I mean, it's a dark time.
Yeah, we have a trauma. We don't go there. But last question before we kind of jump into the blitz. Since you are building a project which is a lot about interoperability and a lot about, I mean, at least it's important for you. You mentioned that being connected with other blockchains, community. This is the last kind of questions I want to touch on. In my experience, launching projects or working with projects or validating projects or building my own projects, it's, yeah, I don't know, if not second most difficult thing after distribution, maybe even more difficult than the distribution, is having a community when you work in interchain that is attached to the token. Sorry, not so much attached to the token, but rather attached to what it is you're building, to what's your experience been like. And once again, since you're a person who highlighted a lot anti-tribalism, how do you focus on building such a community?
Well, first of all, it's not been launched yet, so we'll have to see. And the community building is not really my thing, but we have a really capable team handling that part, and I'm sincerely impressed with their efforts, and I think they did a really good job. So I believe we could make it, if not mainstream, but somewhat noticeable, because as we as we spoke before, privacy is an outsider. I think it's fair to say that normal people don't care about privacy, and one of the narratives we are trying to get people to adopt that current Bitcoin is not broken, but it's not useful because you post your transaction history on chain, but you can fix it. You can make it private. You can wrap it on a privacy chain. It doesn't have to be Zano. It could be any other privacy chain with the confidential asset support, confidential token support. Same way as a wrapped BTC or any other wrapped Bitcoin contracts gave another utility to Bitcoin on Ethereum chain. And suddenly you can use it as a collateral for lending protocols. It became so much more useful. At some point, I haven't had any Bitcoins left. I only used wrapped BTC because why would I have it sitting there doing nothing if I could, I don't know, get some loan and stake my whatever. Doesn't matter. It created a lot of utility for Bitcoin. And we could do the same thing with privacy. We can create a layer where people could have their public asset hidden on a privacy layer and then can transact privately, even trade them privately, while maintaining the access to liquidity. So this is the goal for us.
And I sincerely hope for all of us that you guys succeed in your goal
Well,
as soon as
we'll,
as soon
we'll,
as possible.
we'll do my best.
Let me ask you three questions, which are, to take us out of the conversation. They're still about you. They're a little bit not crypto related, but a little bit weird. But yeah. So first one. Give me, please, or one book, or one movie, or one song. So or movie. Sorry, a book or movie or a song that has positive influence on Pavel in the last 5 years. I don't know.
Book or movie?
Or song with positive influence for you, subjectively, of course,
Well,
subjectively
it's
for
really
you.
hard to say because when I'm working, I'm having my Spotify running all the time. So there are so many. And sometimes I don't even remember
Okay, genre.
genre. It's going to be boring again, but I like post rock.
Okay, okay,
The
okay.
slow and suicidal.
I
I
like.
don't like the up tempo things because it breaks my rhythm of thinking. I want it to be somewhat slow, preferably without any rhythm at all, ambient or something. And this is
I
how I
get
just
you.
flow through the process.
I get you. I get you completely. Okay. Second one. One motivational thing, again, subjectively for you, that keeps you waking up every day for the last 6 7 years, building projects concentrated on anti-tribalism, math, privacy, and not other stupid things, not hype, not money, but what is motivating to do for you to do what you do today? Something one.
Oh, one thing, I don't think I'm quite there yet, but as a goal, as my thing in life, I would I would love to build something I would use daily. And I've been working in different software companies, and most of the products I was working on was like I understood the audience and I could see the metrics, and I know some people would use it, but this is not me. And what I'm trying to do is to build something I'll use on daily basis and be happy that I've been a part of the thing. And crypto is the closest thing ever because I basically survived crypto for at least last 5 years, I think even more. I barely have a bank account. I still do to pay some subscriptions and stuff, but majority of the funds and assets I own is crypto. So it's getting closer. It's not crypto that was built by me, but still I kind of relate to the.
I'm smiling a lot because it makes a lot of sense for me. So totally understand what you say. Okay, last one. This is going to be the strangest one, but I promise it's the last one. Um, Dead or alive, a real human being that you know, or a cartoon character. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if it's somebody from your past or somebody that you know today, or a developer or a writer or a personage from a movie or from a book, some personage who is not a guru for you, but a personage or a persona that when you feel stuck, thinking about this persona helps you to progress. You are not looking up to them. It's not your guru, but it's somebody or something, not something, sorry, someone or somebody, real or not, that helps you progress when you are stuck.
Does it have to be a persona or just the way I think?
Could be anything you want.
Well, I don't know if you know this. I'm a gamer
Okay.
and I play a lot of video games, obviously. And one of the things that really changed my way of thinking is the RPG game called Discalisium. If you know that, you know how they play out the narrative, and you have different skills like logic, encyclopedia, like shivers and stuff. Those are kind of your senses. And when you think of something, they chime in and explain you something from their perspective. And since I learned that way of thinking, I use it quite a lot. And I could even willingly engage some of them. Like, this is the work thing. I need to engage that part of my brain. I don't care how I feel about it. This is just like a logical thing I need to solve. So that kind of entertains me because I imagine it being like a part of the game and the narrative going from one sentence to another.
I like that a lot. That is a
Yeah.
first, I must say. I haven't heard anything similar to that yet, so I like this. The
Yeah, it's really
voices in my head
for
is a
people
good
who
answer. No, I'm
haven't seen
joking.
the game. I mean, I think I should add a short clip or something to explain what I'm actually talking about. But if you know the game, you know what I mean.
If you want to add, please add. Please, for the listeners, please do.
Yeah,
If you
I
want
don't
to
know
add.
how. It's like I need to like
Well,
play a YouTube clip or
let
something.
me let me say something that will help for sure, and for the listeners. So this is for you, for the listeners, guys, girls, everybody else, whoever is listening to this. Everything me and Pavel mentioned is on the show notes. So this game we will attach maybe a YouTube clip like of the gameplay for people who listening to see and to relate, whoever wants to understand.
Yeah, it's
In the
quite
show notes
distinctive. I
too.
mean, it created its own genre. They have successors. I mean, not like the same game, but they kind of invented the gameplay.
Nice. We will definitely link this to the show notes, and once again, for all the listeners out there, please do
I'm
check it out.
happy to promote and advertise the game. I loved it so much.
Nice. I love it when people, I like to promote what they like. It helps, I think, to attach to that, the energy, at least for sure. Pavel, I want to thank you very, very, very much for your time, for your answers. Please don't go away. Don't hang up just yet. This is going to be a goodbye from me and from you for the listeners. For the listeners out there, thank you very much for tuning in, and see you, everybody. Or hear you, everybody, next week. Thank you very much, Pavel. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks a lot for having me. Bye, everybody.
Bye. This content was created by the Citizen Web3 Validator. If you enjoyed it, please support us by delegating on citizenweb3.com/staking and help us create more educational content.